Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Hope everybody's off to a great start on this Thursday. We are hanging out in a room that I'm convinced is where the hostage video was shot. Lucas is trying to tell me otherwise. We're at St. Thomas Sports Park today, kids. Well, I guess it's Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park nowadays, because the Titans are having a press conference. They're going to introduce their new head coach right after we get off the air today, and we decided that it was a special enough occasion that we would broadcast from the facility. Good morning, bud.
Good morning. It's cozy in here in the Music City room.
It's a yes. So the room that we're in has a name. It's called the Music City room. It's Lucas, Kirby, and I. Kirby, for some reason, decided to not be on camera, even though we're all three in lounge chairs like we're doing the Jimmy Kimmel show or something like that. This is a very unique setting. It's not like we're out on the balcony. It's not like Kirby's having to rappel off the side of the building to make sure that we have hardline internet today. It was all sounded very smooth, but you don't care about logistics. You care about your new head coach. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to jump in. We would be happy to have you at any point. What question do you want to hear both of these men answer today? Ran Carthon, in his promoted role within the football structure that they have created here. Brian Callahan as the head coach, who will be speaking as a member of the Titans organization for the first time. I haven't asked yet if Chad Brinker is going to be a part of the press conference, Lucas. I don't know how much you went back in to the details of his job under this role of president of football operations, but
wide-ranging.
It sounds like they split the job down the middle, doesn't it?
Well, the thing that stuck out to me on Brinker's role is day-to-day when it comes to information systems, team operations, including security, video, equipment, grounds. There's a lot under that umbrella of Chad Brinker's job description now with the Tennessee Titans.
Well, the difference being, to me, one is focused on watching tape, scouting of players, and the other is focused on the general oversight of the rest of the football side of the organization, is how the statement reads.
Analytics, strategy, and all those other things that I've mentioned.
So correct me if I'm wrong here, but it felt like when news of that press release came out, and they did the Burke Nihill interview yesterday with the morning show. We played some clips for you of that yesterday. You can check it out on the podcast feed or on the Zone's YouTube channel. It's up there available as well with Titans team president Burke Nihill sitting in yesterday after the announcement was made on both of these fronts. Was yesterday not treated as this is Rand's show now?
I think that's how just about everybody took it, yes. There is no question, there's no contention about the pecking order and the final say of things.
Sure. Final roster. Ran Carthon's promotion includes expanding his role to include full roster control, oversight of the coaching staff, and that's what it says in the statement. Chad Brinker's responsibilities as president of football operations, a new role for the organization worth noting, executive leadership, support for the entire football side of the organization. Day-to-day responsibilities include direct oversight of the football departments that address salary cap management, analytics, and strategy, communications and information systems, all the stuff that you just read, including everything from ground security.
Yeah.
It sounds like. How is that not a split more accurately than the way that we talked about this role yesterday upon the initial review?
What do you mean? I don't understand your question.
I'm looking at a president of football operations. I'm asking, is this actually full control, full football control, the way that it was being presented and projected yesterday?
For Ran Carthon.
Or is there something more in the details here with this Brinker thing that we just kind of glossed over? Because when I read back through that statement last night, when I read back through the way that the team assigned the responsibilities, the way that Amy Adams Strunk, by the way, stuck to her word, said that she would define these roles, we're going to talk to these guys in a press conference here in a little bit, but I'm wondering if that press conference should not include Chad Brinker based on the level of involvement that he's going to have with the stuff that I think, umbrella-wise, people would otherwise have just folded into Ran Carthon's promotion unless you read exactly the responsibilities that are divvied up between the two. You see what I'm saying?
So what listed under Chad Brinker's responsibilities would you think would be under typically a general manager?
Salary cap management?
Did the Mike Vrabel era not have somebody that...
Ben Marino's still here to help with salary cap management, but that was John Robinson's role. Now, maybe they thought that got too much, that there was too much taken on by John at the end because he did have promotions and things of that nature. Maybe they feel that this is a better delegation of a variety of different roles that were previously folded under the general manager. You see what I'm saying? I'm just trying to figure out what's different between what John was and what Ran Carthon is and how those things have kind of been divvied up, which we'll ask the question about. All I'm saying is I don't know if this person should be in the press conference or not. It kind of sounds like he should be.
I mean, what were Ryan Cowden's responsibilities under John Robinson as the assistant general manager?
I would have to pull up a full accounting of that off the top of my head beyond what he was doing as the interim for you, but we can go back through that in the next segment if you would like to, so we can be more accurate with it. And I can find out some more information on that probably within a commercial break. So we're going to ask a bunch of questions today. Obviously, what's at the forefront is how much of this is about the quarterback that they currently have, how much of it is for the people that were previously here about finding somebody who runs a system that the quarterback is most comfortable with, how much of this is quarterback-centric versus the rest of the team, because that's important as well. And we're going to talk about it today. How much of this roster do you actually have to account for being improved by the coaching change, given that we're expecting pretty sweeping roster turnover across the board out of necessity? We'll take your phone calls throughout the course of the day. Do you have the chat in front of you? Are you monitoring that? Is that your responsibility?
I do, yes.
Look at you with your stylus. Megan would be so proud.
Yes, a Christmas gift for my girlfriend. Jameson on the F&M Bank chat says, what is this? Buck and Lucas fireside chat. It looks like Shane says, welcome to the Buck and Lucas late night show as we sit here in our little chair setup in the Music City room.
It looks so sad. You know what? It honestly looks like one of those casting couch situations, which I don't know how terribly comfortable with I am now that I'm looking at it in a camera where we can actually see these things.
And Chris says, Rand will build the team. Chad will handle football operations. It's not that hard. I feel like we are trying to overcomplicate things. There are a lot of duties to run a football. Like the general manager.
But one person used to do that job, and I want to understand why this is different. Why does it need to be different? Does it need to be different? Was there something about the previous situation that necessitated the differences in the roles that you defined? Why did you feel the need to add a new role for the organization that also has executive leadership and support for the entire football side of the organization? I don't think those are unfair questions to ask or parse.
Executive leadership and support for the entire football side of the organization. Support feels like an important word there. His day-to-day responsibilities will include direct oversight of the football departments that address salary cap management, analytics and strategy, communications and information systems, and team operations, including security, video, equipment, and grounds. He will also continue to provide scouting evaluations of top talent in both college and the NFL.
So they're defined roles. I just want to know more about the pecking order and why they split the baby the way that they did. That's all I'm saying. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. We'd be happy to have you at any point throughout the course of our broadcast here at St. Thomas Sports Park. Just some quick news, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later in the show with Jim Harbaugh, the next domino to fall in the coaching carousel. Yes, Kirby, you can turn your microphone on instead of trying to motion to me, perhaps.
All right, well, we could hear you better if you put your mic in front of your mouth.
Okay. The audience is going to be disappointed with you for making sure that I could be heard more clearly. Jim Harbaugh got hired announced officially at about 6:30, 7 o'clock last night. Adam Schefter first with the report. He's going to be the new head coach of the Chargers. A full circle experience for him, having played quarterback for that franchise, played quarterback at Michigan, head coach at Michigan. Played quarterback for the Chargers, now the head coach in Los Angeles, and as good a situation as Justin Herbert could possibly have.
Yes, Jim Harbaugh took that job because of Justin Herbert. Jim Harbaugh probably thinks he can win a Super Bowl with Justin Herbert and probably thinks that he can make a run at that in 2024 with the roster that's laid out with the L.A. Chargers this year. They're going to be in cap hell. They're going to have a lot of guys that are on the final year of their deal, either this season or next season, a lot of stars on that roster. So I think Jim Harbaugh is looking at it as making a run in 2024 and becoming the first head coach in football history to win a national championship one year and then win a Super Bowl the very next year.
I was surprised that there's only been the one.
Who?
What? Jim Harbaugh. The idea. I'm sorry. Did you give a different stat than the
No,
one
the
that
stat
I
I
was looking at?
sent you was Jim Harbaugh is the first coach in the AP Top 25 era to depart for the NFL, to leave immediately after winning a
Okay.
national
I just wanted
championship.
to make sure we were talking about.
Yes,
that.
I can't imagine there's been any coach in football history that's done that in back-to-back years, national title and Super Bowl. I don't know that there's been a coach, I suppose Jimmy Johnson, right? Did he win a national title with Miami? I believe he did. So
The year that he jumped though.
no, not the year that he jumped.
I mean, yes, he did win titles with Miami. Yes.
And with Dallas. So yes, Jim looking to make some history. He's already made a little bit of history, bolting and leaving Michigan with the NCAA getting ready to barrel down on him, and likely Sharon Moore to be promoted as the head coach. I wonder if Michigan fans feel conflicted at all. I bet they don't. I bet they're perfectly fine with everything that's gone down in the last couple of years because of what it resulted in January. And they're wishing Jim Harbaugh a tearful and happy goodbye and getting ready to move on to the Sharon Moore era.
Well, it's just the only thing more hypocritical than Jim Harbaugh telling everybody that he didn't want NFL jobs, interviewed for the Vikings, interviewed for the Broncos, interviewed for the Chargers, took an NFL job, and left Michigan is Lucas telling me that sports fans care about the details, and then me giving too much detail to start the show this morning about how it is that this thing is going to be done. That's the only thing that's more hypocritical.
You know who I think falls under the most pressure here? Not Jim Harbaugh in 2024, not Sharon Moore, who takes over that roster, but Ryan Day.
Ooh.
Ryan Day, who sees Jim Harbaugh leave after beating him 3 years in a row, and now has to face up with Sharon Moore and take back this rivalry. He's hired Bill O'Brien to come in and call the plays. Ohio State has made some massive moves in the transfer portal. To me, and Ohio State fan Allen Kirby is nodding in agreement, Ryan Day faces the most pressure out of anybody that is affected by this whole scenario.
So you can join the conversation via the phones. Lucas has the chat in front of him. He will read your comments as he sees fit on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. We are live at St. Thomas Sports Park this morning because the Titans are announcing their new head coach just upstairs from where we're sitting right now in a couple hours. We'll carry that press conference live for you at 1 o'clock. We'll end our show a little early so Blaine and Mickey can have time to start theirs and get to the press conference from the jump. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. The Tennessee Men's Clinic is a great place to get your performance right if you feel like that has suffered as of late. Erectile dysfunction is what the Tennessee Men's Clinic was founded to help treat. Between that and their weight loss treatments, they can truly change your life. A lot of dudes deal with erectile dysfunction. About half of men, as you age, as you start to see changes with your body, these things are normal. No need to freak out. No need to put it off. Just go get the help that you need from the Tennessee Men's Clinic. Many guys go in after pills or herbals have failed, and they're there to help you with no surgical treatments. They have multiple urologists and providers in their location in downtown Nashville and in Cool Springs to take care of you. So get treatment for ED knocked off the list early this year. They specialize in seeing dudes who think they're out of luck. You're not out of luck. You just need to make the call. 615-208-9090. That's 615-208-9090 or go online to TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. Welcome back here on the radio show. We're hanging out at St. Thomas Sports Park. Titans going to meet with the media here in just a little bit. What questions do you want to hear answered today from your head coach, from your new, well, I don't want to say new general manager, but your general manager with his expanded role from the role that we all assumed fell under the purview of general manager last year that did in fact not? Here, 615-737-1045. A quick news note before we get to one, the Wes Woodyard interview that many of you kept bringing up with us yesterday. I hadn't had a chance to hear it before the show started. I've had a chance to listen back to the podcast now, so we're going to talk about some pertinent elements of that here in just a second. There is the first known coordinator inquiry under the Brian Callahan coaching staff. They have requested an interview with Ravens defensive backs coach Denard Wilson for their DC job per source. That is according to Jeremy Fowler of ESPN. Wilson also met with the Giants for their defensive coordinator job. Remember that Wink Martindale was fired there after Brian Daboll said that he was going to be retained. Apparently things got contentious. Wink Martindale became uncollaborative, some might say, and they decided to part ways. Some notes that are worth pointing out here about Wilson. He's been with the Ravens staff for just last season, just this current season is his first year. 2 seasons with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's been with the Jets. He's been with the Rams. Ran Carthon was also with the Rams at the same time that Wilson was. That's pointed out by Pro Football Talk. Carthon obviously given control over the roster today, so there's going to be some connections there. When Rand brought up at the last press conference that we spoke to him at that he's going to be familiar with a variety of different candidates, it's not just for the head coach. It's for people who are interviewing for coordinator and position coaching jobs around the league.
So he was the passing game coordinator and DB coach during that Super Bowl run with the Eagles last year, and he got his start in the NFL as a coach with Jeff Fisher and Coach Mack with the Rams from 2012, and then promoted as the DB coach in 2015. So I'm sure Coach Mack could give some perspective on that tomorrow.
Mike Herndon is tweeting out an article from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Darius Slay, the corners, one of the corners for the Eagles, saying he wished that Denard Wilson would have been named defensive coordinator after Jonathan Gannon left last year to become, of course, the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Quote, I think he would have made a lot of difference. He was loved by us. I thought for sure he should have stayed. So,
interesting.
Will Levis and Harold Landry said the same of Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel got fired. So these things, don't always equate to this is what's in the best interest of the organization. For Philadelphia, they end up moving on from Sean Desai in short order. Sounds like they've already got their new DC in Vic Fangio, who I don't know if you saw the reports about that last night. He is leaving Miami under a mutual parting of ways because he is also not collaborative, Lucas, according to Albert Breer.
Ding.
I mean, I'm not just being over the top about the C word. The C word is everywhere.
It does feel more prevalent than usual this year, but I think there's something to Vic Fangio also wanting to go back and be closer to family as well.
That was a part of the
in Pennsylvania. So I think there were a lot of factors in Vic Fangio leaving the Dolphins, but that is certainly a hot commodity, a defensive coordinator. Would it bother you at all? Because we have somewhat dismissed the concerns about Brian Johnson never having been the primary play caller with how instrumental he is in game planning and game day.
Callahan.
What did I say?
Johnson.
Yeah, Callahan, excuse me.
There's a couple of Bryans. There's a couple of Johnsons.
And a couple of Callahans. Would it bother you to have a first-time primary play caller on the offensive side and your head coach calling plays and a first-time play caller on the defensive side if they've just requested an interview for Denard Wilson?
Who else is on the staff, I guess is my question. If you're going to do it's not like you can't, there's nothing that outright forbids you from doing that, right? Other than, okay, it may not lend itself to immediate success right out of the gate because you're going to have a learning curve for both parties here, much less the special teams, which is not inconsequential for this team. I don't know what Nick Folk is going to do in the offseason. He's 38 years old. He may decide that this bleep isn't worth it anymore.
Yeah.
They can't figure out the returning situation. They've got a bunch of questions. They'll have Stonehouse back and fully healthy for the start of the season and things like that, but special teams not inconsequential here either. It's going to be a big talking point. It was the first in-season firing that Mike Vrabel made, right, of his career here. So your coordinators are not it's It's not just the head coach. It's not just the coordinators. It's the supporting staff that they build out around it. I will also be curious to know and to ask Brian Callahan today. This was a staff that saw expansion in a bunch of different roles. Is your plan to keep a similar kind of format where you have Charles London quarterbacks coach but also passing game coordinator? You have Pat O'Hara, who is a former quarterbacks coach. He's now the passing game analyst.
Yeah.
You have Justin Outen. He's your running backs coach. He's also your run game coordinator. Like how
Tony Dews, who's coached running backs and tight ends.
All these different people that were shuffled around, new folks brought in. Like is your plan? One would assume that they have at least that much in mind, if not actual people to fill those roles. Do you plan to go with that method? Are there benefits to that? Are there drawbacks that we don't necessarily know based on the structure that was here last year? I know he's not going to comment on how things were done here last year, but I think he understands the basic concept, or I think he should.
He'll probably get a lot of questions about his staff today.
Sure.
Right? A lot of questions about his dad, a lot of questions about the defense, what he'll be looking for in a defensive coordinator and a special teams coordinator. You bring up Nick Folk. Remember, Cade York was on the practice squad last year. The Giants picked him up, and then he was placed on injured reserve. He is currently a free agent.
Okay.
Cade York, the former LSU kicker drafted by the Browns. So, it'll be interesting. I wonder what percentage of the questions Callahan gets today will be about his coaching staff, specifically with the offensive line and the defensive side of the ball.
615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. We got some calls. Let's start with Steven in Franklin first. Good morning.
Hey, morning, guys. I know anytime we're inviting new people into the fold, we kind of take it easy on them with that initial press conference. But, man, I'm just curious if somebody's going to ask the tough question, which is, what is everybody going to do different that's new on the Titan staff to get us out of this mediocrity we've been in for the past 20 years? And not only that, but we're kind of turning a page. I mean, really the only relevance we had over the past few years has been, Derrick Henry, which is a superstar in the NFL, and our coach, really the two biggest stars on our team. Well, they're both going to be gone now. I mean, I think we're slipping into irrelevancy like we're the Arizona Cardinals. I mean, like, what is the team going to do to improve our perception across the league? That's it. I'll listen offline.
Well, perception. I mean, the only thing that you can do is win games. Like, you can't just bank on finding another Derrick Henry, and you can pour all the marketing that you want. I mean, they dumped a ton of marketing efforts into Mike Vrabel, right? Leader of men, tough guy. He's in all the hype videos, all these different things. We talked about this before. They positioned him that way, and he is also that. Like, he carries himself that way. He's an easy person to kind of lean into if you're trying to establish an identity as an organization, how you want to be perceived by people. It's not just, from the football side of things, but the answer to that question is win football games.
And score points.
Score points. I mean, if you want to matter, win. I get what you're saying about Derrick Henry and Vrabel, but, winning is the thing that has to be accomplished here. And again, according to the owner, not just winning more than you lose, winning of consequence. Playoff runs, not just playoff appearances, of which they haven't had since the Bengals knocked them out in 21. Let's go to Josh in South Bend, Indiana.
Hey, boys, how we doing today?
We're swell.
All right. Well, I tell you what, I may be 8 hours north, but I'm definitely feeling the vibe of the Titans lifer up here in Indiana, and I'm excited for everybody. I'm excited for Coach Cal and his family to be here. Excited for Rand. But so I just wanted to get your opinion. As far as the free agents are concerned, we're going to have a ton of cap space coming up. Is there any free agents that you think Coach Cal would bring with him to Tennessee from Cincinnati? And are there any other free agents that are on you guys' radar?
Appreciate the call. We'll have a ton of time to talk about that. The one that I think that most people are curious about is T. Higgins. T. Higgins is almost now, nothing is 100% guaranteed until it happens. Their plan in Cincinnati is to franchise tag T. Higgins, keep him in the fold, work out a long-term deal, make the contract cost-effective while they figure out chases and not rob Burrow of two of the best weapons in the league. Now, a guy like Tyler Boyd, the third option there, who is hitting free agency, those are the kind of people who can help come in, help teach Treylon Burks a system, help get DeAndre Hopkins up to speed. Not that DeAndre Hopkins needs a ton of help, but you understand, like, new coach wants somebody that's familiar. ideally it'd be a little better than Tim Kelly's Chris Moore, right? That was kind of the way that was viewed, coming from Houston to Tennessee. A veteran guy, somebody who has experience in a variety of different roles, is unselfish. He plays special teams. Mike Vrabel said, I just wish we could have got him, a couple of years earlier.
Boyd. Or Moore, talking about Moore,
yeah. But the concept being the
yes.
same, right?
Irv Smith and Drew Sample, a pair of tight ends, hit free agency from Cincinnati. Jonah Williams, the right tackle, hits free agency, 26 years old.
Does this mean we don't have to deal with any more Jeff Swains, Trayvon Wesco's, human tree trunks of tight ends, blocking tight ends? You're going to have tight ends that block, but are we moving away from that model?
A lot of 11 personnel.
Because those two aren't that.
No, they're not. Pass-catching tight ends. And Jake Browning is a free agent. I imagine Cincinnati would prioritize keeping Jake Browning. One of the best. Did he establish himself? I feel like a lot of guys maybe made a case for this last season, but did he establish himself as one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL in 2023?
He provided a service for them that made him last year one of the best backup options in the NFL. But again, how different does he look? They're promoting their quarterbacks coach
to OC, yep.
to Dan Pitcher, to the offensive coordinator. So they're keeping the same level of continuity. Fair to expect that a guy like Jake Browning would make sense, although I would love to see them make a play for it. How much money do you think that he's earned? Because you're going to have to, if you want a quality backup quarterback, you're going to have to spend. That's not inconsequential. So when we talk about like where the dollars matter and what's a couple $1 million here or a couple $1 million there, you sure we can't find $5 million for Derrick Henry? I'm looking around at backup quarterbacks and saying, yeah, but I'd rather give an extra $2 or $3 million if I can help it to a backup quarterback to make me feel better if something, God forbid, happens to Will Levis.
Well, Browning will be making more than the $750,000 he made in 2023. That much we can guarantee.
Good for that guy, man.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
That.
It was
Him
almost
and Baker.
He was almost out of the league.
Yeah, like Baker's got first-round money to lean on. He wasn't making pennies this year, but on a scale of starting quarterbacks, both of those guys made themselves a ton of cash. All right, so quickly. Today signifies a new era of Titans football. Out with the old, in with the new, in more than one sense. Wesley Woodyard spoke to some of the old that needed to be cleared out here. Now, it's worth mentioning that Wes Woodyard's last year on the team was 2019. So this was a considerable amount of time ago that he is speaking from personal experience. Now, what I will tell you is there are plenty of players who have played for this organization since that share the opinion of Wesley Woodyard. So he's not just speaking from his perspective. He's speaking for a variety of different guys. I got calls from people yesterday echoing those sentiments, people who have played here, people who have been around Mike Vrabel in that setting. So it's a full interview that Wesley Woodyard, the former Titans linebacker, did with Ramon, Kayla, and Will about why it is, a part of the reason that's not talked about, why Mike Vrabel ended up basically running people down here with the way that he conducted himself. This was Wesley Woodyard describing an example of an exchange between Mike Vrabel and the former Titans defensive coordinator, Dean Pease.
I'll give you an example of what was going on. That week leading up to that game, Coach Pease comes in the room, and him and Vrabel had kind of a little back and forth. I don't want to say heated, but they had a little back and forth, whatever. And Pease walks in, sits down on the desk like all D coordinators started meeting off, but before it was a different vibe. It was almost like, fellas, and Coach Pease is a Christian man, God-fearing man, and he was like, fellas, I just want to apologize that, I showed some characteristics of me being unprofessional, and we was like, no, Coach, like, you are D coordinator, like, we rock with you, like, we love you, we know what kind of man you are, and then, boom, right in the middle of an apology, Braves walk in. Give me the clipper. Let me talk. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And so now you go from, you just interrupted a pure bonding moment with one of the greatest defensive coordinators in the history of the game, and you want to do this. We already know, like, listen, you can't put certain players in certain positions. I'll give you another example. Love Malcolm Butler to death, but we want to play cover 4 versus one of the greatest quarterbacks, not at the time, soon to be, and cover 4 is a thinking coverage. Malcolm is a reactor, lock you down, and now you're forcing us to do this, and like that's not our strength right now. So it was just a series of crazy things that happened that made us be like, man, this is scary.
This is scary. So, not inconsequential. more detail on old news is what Woodyard provided, because he basically did that same interview with less detail a couple of years ago with Ramon and Jason.
Yeah, and he talked, he offered more instances like Vrabel taking away the ability for players to have their kids in the locker room post-game, right? And
Sure.
didn't like the fact that Vrabel's kids were allowed to be there post-game.
Okay. Why? My immediate question is, why didn't anybody say anything then? What's the obvious answer? They're winning. If it's so bad, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I understand his perspective, but if it's bad enough that you want to burn the house down 5 years after the fact, why is nobody saying anything in real time? Now, I get it. That doesn't benefit anybody to nuke a coach in the middle of a season. Could T.R. Tart have done something like this? Probably. Could Christian Fulton have done something like this? Probably. Could David Long have done something like this? Probably. Could Wes have done this when he was here? Hell yes. So I think it matters. I think it informs the decision that has been made in the aftermath of them moving on from this coach. And it may all end up being for the best. But my initial reaction is, well, why the hell am I hearing about this 5 years after the fact? You know? That is the part of me that gets bothered by that clip.
Well, people think, okay, so you told me yesterday that you asked, who did you say that reminded you of?
Patricia.
Matt Patricia,
Sure.
right? And the way he'd rub players wrong.
Yeah.
Similarly with Josh McDaniels in Vegas and the way he rubbed players wrong. Those two coaches completely lost their locker rooms, right? I don't know that we could ever say Vrabel completely lost the locker room.
They didn't lose all of it.
I get that, but that's the thing. Players seem to either adore Vrabel, and a lot of the players that loved Mike Vrabel played really good football
Are the best
for
players.
Mike Vrabel.
Yeah.
So it was a very mutually beneficial relationship,
Sure.
like Derrick Henry and Taylor Lewan. And
You're the coach of everybody, not
Sure.
just the coach of the stars.
yes, or players seem to feel that way about Mike Vrabel, like David Long and his comments on Vrabel after the fact. So the answer is probably usually somewhere in the middle, but there's no doubt he's a very polarizing coach.
It's never going to reflect well on the player to say that in real time. I'm not asking for them to do something that is so far to their detriment that it would be completely unfair. I'm cognizant of that, okay? But like that is one of the questions that first pops into my mind when I hear that Wesley Woodyard interview. Wes, man, we were talking to you every day that entire time. You're trying to accomplish something, you think you're on the precipice, but it's bad. It's scary, but not so much that you're unwilling to rock the boat because, oh, my God, the Super Bowl's right there. It's not that scary.
No, of course it's not that scary.
I'm
But
ju-
when are players going to...
Lucas, that's my point.
Sitting in a locker room to be talking to you, the media, about their current head coach. It's ridiculous how we don't let kids...
It's scary
You keep
is
that stuff
the
in-house.
quote.
You keep that
It's
stuff in-house.
Scary is the quote, but not so scary that we're not... that it's just, I don't like that. You get what I'm saying?
Yes, not so scary that you're going to cut down your head coach and rock the boat in the middle of a season where you feel like you can accomplish something. That makes perfect sense to me. I'm not with the, well, why didn't you say something while you were here?
I'm not expecting him to. I'm just saying I don't love that stuff after the fact. 5 years, it's the same to me as anonymous quotes that just are done for the purpose of taking people out. When they do these anonymous executive surveys and things like that, where it's just open season on somebody, right? Doesn't matter who it is. It's the coach, it's the quarterback, it's the executive, it's the owner, whatever. It's just people teeing off on people for the sake of it. I'm not saying that it's not justified. He did things wrong here, Mike Vrabel, okay? There's a reason he doesn't have his job. There's a bunch of reasons why he doesn't have his job anymore. All of what Wesley Woodyard is saying is valid, and 5 years after the fact, why do I care?
Well, I think it matters for the coach who was just fired when you learn things like that.
Sure.
I think it matters, especially considering the complete and total departure that is the new coach they've hired in that regard when it comes to personality and how he deals with player.
It informs a lot of it.
And it seems like it informed a lot of how the Titans went about this coaching search.
All right, we've rambled on along about a person who no longer works here at this point. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll keep you updated with the latest news and, of course, the press conference that we will carry for you with Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon at 1 o'clock. The word of the week is all it says coming up next. I don't know what that means. Perhaps Lucas will tell us. Welcome back. We're broadcasting live at St. Thomas Sports Park. Press conference at 1. We're with you right up until then. We'll what do you think about 12:50 today before we let things go early to get Blaine and Mickey up and running?
Yeah, we'll make sure Blaine and Mickey get every second of the press conference.
Absolutely, so that they can carry that for you, and you can hear that right on 104.5 The Zone. And I think it's fair to assume that Callahan will be on with 3HL at some point this afternoon.
5 o'clock.
Oh, they have that confirmed?
Yes, 5 o'clock. Brian Callahan will make his 104.5 The Zone debut.
Okay, so you can hear that at 5. No reason to change the dial. The word of the day. Now, I saw it in my grid, and I didn't realize what we were talking about until I realized that it was the C word. The C word is collaborative. For those of you unfamiliar, 10 and 2, don't swerve. It's all right. We're not getting reckless on FCC Safe Radio. It's our C word as a show because I'm tired of it. What ref was that?
I don't remember.
Jackson, do you happen to know which ref that was?
That was a great moment.
I can look it up.
I want to say it's Boger, but I don't think that's right.
No, I don't think it was Boger.
Okay.
I don't
it's just
think
an easy target around here.
Yeah, Bogert's one of the most recognizable, maybe the most recognizable, other than Hockley with the biceps in the NFL. So, no, I don't think it was. I feel like we would have remembered if it was Bogert.
He's not recognizable. He's infamous.
Yes.
Who was it, Jackson?
Sean Smith.
Sean Smith. Okay, Sean Smith with the famous hey.
But Albert Breer commenting on the Dolphins parting ways with defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. This has been in the works for about a week. Philosophical differences would probably be the best way to sum up the divide. I'd expect Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel to look for a more collaborative approach from his next DC. Robert Kraft, last week, when declining to detail the front office structure, saying this is a time to celebrate Gerard Mayo, said, quote, "We're looking for collaboration. We're counting on our internal people, but we'll interview outside candidates." Jackson, can we hear Burke Nihill yesterday on Ramon, Kayla, and Will talking about the interview process between Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan and the rest of Titans brass?
It was remarkable in the interview process. Again, exhausting. 3-4 hour interviews in many cases across Zoom over 2 weeks. Brian was the last in-person interview. It started off as an interview, right? People asking Brian questions, Brian answering the questions. At some point, Amy Adams-Strunk, Kenneth Adams, myself, Ran, Chad Brinker, Anthony Robinson are in the room. And at some point, that interview changed from an interview to a workshop on how they were going to build this thing. It just naturally evolved into it. Ran and Brian went from Ran asking questions, Brian answering questions, to them just riffing and getting excited, and everybody was sitting up in their chair, listening to them talk about, for example, we're not looking for guys that are going to fall into a 1-2-3 receiver bucket. We're looking for what defines our perfect X receiver in this system, what defines our perfect Z receiver in this system, to the inch, to the weight, to the athleticism score. When do you take an exception, and how does a coach need to buy into an exception, and how many exceptions can you have on a team? And these guys were just building a program to end an interview. We hadn't extended an offer yet. Brian didn't know it was his job, but it was the beginning of the next generation of Titans football. That's vision, right? Is them talking together about how we're going to get where we need to go, which is delivering to Nashville a championship caliber team consistently.
Titans president.
That's collaboration.
Oh my God. So Burt called it a masterclass. Did you see that line? That the coaching search conducted by Rand was a masterclass. Okay. I'm curious to know what beyond that made it a masterclass. What's kind of the, what kind of defines that for you? And he's just described it in pretty good detail, how the back and forth and kind of pointing out things like exceptions with players and stuff like that, stuff that matters, right?
Yeah, it was functional. It was efficient, right? It was succinct.
Okay, masterclass. I'm curious to know what parts made it exactly that, is all I'm saying. What memo got sent around the league that said the collaborative has to be a part of every coaching, hiring and firing, general manager hiring and firing, not just in the NFL, the NBA? Doc Rivers became the new head coach of the Bucks, and I saw a Sham Charania tweet about that the Bucks are looking for a more collaborative approach with Doc bleeping Rivers. Come on. Like, What am I missing? Who's running this thing? It's CAA, isn't it? It's the agencies. We should have known from the jump. Everybody's got collaborative in the press releases. Collaboration. I'm banning the C word. I'm banning the V word. No more vision. No more collaboration. I'm done with it. And we're going to hear it 100 million times today.
I don't think we would be as put off by that word if it weren't for the way the Mike Vrabel Ran Carthon thing did not work last year. I think we're just jaded by it. It's a perfectly normal word to use when there are multiple voices in a room, which needs to be the case in these instances. And, I mean, maybe there is something to the evolution of pro sports where front office and coaching staff are more blended together in a way that is more collaborative, but otherwise, I think we're just making a big stink because we got tired of hearing it here.
That's right.
And
I'm tired of it.
And that's about it.
I'm over it. Well, because the last example of it didn't work. So I'm saying, okay, why should I be accepting of this new thing? After a year of you having it fall on its face.
But are we moving into an era of sports where that does become the norm, where Kyle Shanahan is having more input, and obviously that is becoming a model organization in the NFL.
Brother, it should be, especially in pro sports. I'm pro what it is conceptually. I think that coaches in today's age, and Kirby will probably throw what's left of his Reese's fast break bar at me for saying this, but I think that players and coaches should be as much a partnership as a boss-player dynamic, because you're not the boss of these guys anymore. They make more than you. All right? You're there in service of them. And I know that's a concept with, old school thinking that does not vibe, but this is a place that just got rid of a bunch of old school thinking and is embracing a new approach. When the Packers hired Matt LaFleur, was he the boss of Aaron Rodgers or was he Aaron Rodgers' partner? I'm not saying
the second one.
Again,
yes.
I'm not saying that empowering Aaron Rodgers was the right thing to do, but in professional sports, that is the dynamic. You can't peel these things back. This is the direction that it's moving.
You have to cater the relationship to the player, not the other way around.
Correct.
Which, again, keeps us coming back to the Mike Vrabel discussion, right?
Got to be good enough to cater a relationship with Vrabel.
And, could we say that about Mike Vrabel, that was not necessarily his strength on catering the relationship to what the player needed, but more the other way around? Like, you've got to fit what we're doing here and what I want out of you and my vision for what an NFL player looks like, not vice versa.
There was less of it than he projected, because he projected a fair amount of that. Okay?
Sure.
Externally.
There was just plenty of sample size of guys, Josh Reynolds, right, coming here, don't know what that experience was here, and then instantly finding that success.
I do. It sounds
Detroit.
It sounds like Christian Fulton's experience here. Doesn't it sound eerily similar? And I know Fulton was a draft pick and a bunch of other things going on there, but like the first thing that Josh Reynolds did in a press conference is talk about his knee injury, and immediately we knew, oh, this guy's done. This guy's done here. You can't do that here.
But them's the breaks.
That's what I'm saying, boys.
Once there were certain things that just didn't vibe with the way things were done here, it was almost like it didn't matter how talented you were, it didn't matter what you could bring on the field. It just wasn't going to work.
Listen, today is about down with the Patriot way, okay? The league, the vibe across the league is down with the Patriot way, and this is a franchise that is embracing that after experiencing what was two guys who came from New England and did things their way. 615-737-1045 is how you can join. Second hour is coming up next.
It is 11:02. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica, live from Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, where at 1 p.m. the Tennessee Titans will formally introduce Brian Callahan as the 20th head coach in franchise history in a press conference that you can hear live right here on 104.5 The Zone on Blaine and Mickey. Another head coaching job has been filled. The LA Chargers announced on Wednesday they have hired Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh off the heels of his national championship with the Wolverines. The Wolverine.com reports that Michigan offensive coordinator Sharon Moore is expected to step in as the next head coach. That leaves 4 head coach openings in the NFL with Atlanta, Carolina, Washington, and Seattle. The Tennessee Titans have reportedly placed a request for one defensive coordinator interview as Brian Callahan starts the process of building his staff. It is defensive backs coach Denard Wilson from the Baltimore Ravens. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
What's happening? Welcome back here live from St. Thomas Sports Park, Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park, where, as Lucas mentioned in his update, we are doing the show live from today. We are here because the new head coach is here. The plane landed this morning. I saw the shuttle bus already outside, so he's been making the rounds with his family at the facility. Ran Carthon, a bunch of the Titans staff there to greet them. Do you remember the scene that was Ran Carthon's welcome here to Tennessee last year? It went viral.
It was about 10 feet from where we are now.
Yeah, in the lobby where they had basically the entire staff like scaling the building all the way up. I don't remember a balloon drop, but it felt like there might have been one when he walked in. It was a pretty cool scene. No such introduction from Brian Callahan today. I wonder what happened there. But either way, Callahan in the building. I'm laughing to start the show, which you can interact with, by the way, by calling us, 615-737-1045. Jackson is in the studio. He is dutifully there babysitting that while we are out here screwing around in the Music City room of St. Thomas Sports Park, where they have shoved us into to make sure that we can't bother anybody while we do a 3-hour radio show while they take their new head coach around the building. I'm laughing to start the show, though, because Bleacher Report put out a tweet yesterday. Ed Reed and Ray Lewis. Robert is going to a tailgate, a Ravens tailgate this weekend. He's going to the AFC Championship game. He's going to be at a tailgate for Jimmy's Seafood that features those two. I'm sure he's going to get arrested trying to get a picture or trying to, kiss Ray Lewis on the mouth or something like that. Like, I'm concerned we should have adult supervision for Robert at this tailgate. But it says, name a scarier duo for a QB, and it's a picture of Ray Lewis and Ed Reed. And, late stage Ray Lewis with the crazy Justin Tuck face mask and the robot arm and the deer antler spray and all of it. And then somebody immediately quote tweeted with a picture of Aaron Brewer and Andre Dillard. So
that is scarier.
That's the scarier duo for a QB. Yes, just because your new head coach is here does not mean your new offensive line is here yet, and that is one of many questions that the two gentlemen who are responsible in some form or fashion for overseeing this thing getting up off the mat are going to have to answer today. What is the level of priority that is placed on offensive line? We've heard Brian Callahan talk in clips about quarterback receiver being the thing that is going to guide the league forward. Perhaps that's not so definitive. A little clarity on that today I don't think would hurt, given that this team has the 7th overall pick. You could go to receiver. It's not that much different from the Jamar Chase Penei Sewell thing at 5th overall. There are going to be wide receivers all over the place. Kirby has fleas, apparently. He's shedding in the Music City room. I'm concerned with the level of, I think that's just Reese's Crisps that are left on him.
How conflicted will Titans fans be about the idea of drafting a receiver at 7 for a franchise that seemingly has never, in 25 years since moving to Tennessee, really prioritized the wide receiver position to a point that has been very frustrating with Titans fans, but having been as scarred as they are for the last 2 years of left tackle play, I mean, how split down the middle are Titans fans going to be between go get the best receiver on the board at 7 overall, or no, please God, get a left tackle and protect your quarterback?
Have you ever wanted to incite a riot? For anything? Just generally. Anything in your life?
Not necessarily.
No, you don't seem passionate enough about anything in particular to incite a riot based on my interactions with you. If they draft a receiver 7th with all the needs and offensive line that this team has, I'm not inciting a riot using the radio station as a platform, but I'm willing to look the other way if you guys do, okay? That's a little bit ridiculous. You cannot have the last 2 seasons that this team has just had and think about anything other than a left tackle.
You think it's inexcusable to go anywhere outside of left tackle at 7th overall?
You can't. He's not Joe Burrow. Levis is not Joe Burrow. There is something about Joe Burrow, and Greg Cosell, by the way, laid it out very, very well. We're not going to play that specific clip for you, but the difference, what allows the Bengals to have the leeway to do something like that, why Burrow allows for the wiggle room to do something like that in ways that Will Levis does not. He's not Joe Burrow. We don't know what he is yet, okay? He's a big old question mark with a bunch of, neck veins and red face. Like, I don't know what he is just yet. So while we figure that out, probably the best way to figure that out is to make sure that he's not laying on his back the entire time with Vita Vea doing some kind of sumo wrestler dance on top of him, okay? If they draft a wide receiver here 7th overall, I'm going to lose my bleep, all right? I'm going to lose my damn mind.
Well, that's where the conversations between Ran and Callahan are going to be fascinating because Ran is the decision maker, the final say, yes, but he's still going to build a roster that caters to Brian Callahan, who is coming from a place that very clearly prioritized the wide receiver position over the offensive line, and it worked out pretty well for them. Yes, they had a special player at quarterback in Joe Burrow, but that's going to be a fascinating conversation here in the coming
weeks. It's not
weeks.
a conversation. Don't make it a conversation.
Just because it's not a conversation for you, Buck, doesn't mean it's not a conversation elsewhere. Everything is a conversation.
They have to be prepared for all scenarios. You are correct. But if the 2 tackles, the 2 consensus top tackles are gone, in Alt and Fashanu.
Breaking sports news on 104.5 The Zone.
The Buccaneers offensive coordinator Dave Canales is taking the Carolina Panthers head coaching job. He is the person that we've talked about a couple. If you've heard that name on the radio show before, we talked about him with Baker Mayfield this year, his first year in Tampa Bay as the OC. We've talked about him on Seattle staff during the reclamation project that was Geno Smith and how big a role that he had to play there. Again, another offensive-minded head coach goes to a job where offense and quarterback development are at a premium with a team that doesn't have an offensive line. But that leaves now 3 head coaching openings. As of this morning, I told you I was going to be surprised if we didn't get on the air here by tomorrow with at least one of these. Harbaugh makes 1. Canales makes 2. 3 jobs left to go in the Falcons, the Commanders, and who am I forgetting? The Seahawks.
Yes. The Seahawks, where Dave Canales was part of the staff for over a decade. He was the QB coach in Seattle, the passing game coordinator from, 5 years, not over a decade. He was there from 2010 through 2022. So Canales was in Seattle a very long time.
He was in there for a while.
And he was only in Tampa for this past season.
Yes, Tom Pelissero was reporting that 2 Indianapolis Colts defensive backs.
No, you didn't say that.
Suspended, Lucas. I just said that.
You
have a witness.
You're a bad liar.
You can't look at Kirby. Kirby's not paying attention either. He's too busy getting ready to hand the next head coach a Buckeye and have it thrown back at him.
You're a bad liar.
Yeah, I rebuke that in the name of Jesus.
So Washington, Seattle, Atlanta, Ben Johnson out there, Bill Belichick out there, Mike Vrabel out there, Dan Quinn doing second interviews.
Mm-hmm.
This will be interesting.
Dan Quinn keeps scheduling second interviews.
Yes, he does.
And the job
Poor Dan Quinn. Keeps getting cut down.
Oh, no. Now,
just in the middle of his prep for his second interview, and then his phone buzzes, and so-and-so has hired a head coach.
So there's 2 things to think about here because Vrabel was scheduled to interview there today. Worth noting.
In Carolina.
Interviewed with Atlanta last night. Second interview. He didn't do any of these virtual ones. Now, the only reason that I don't think Titans fans really care about this, but the only reason that the Titans care whether Mike Vrabel gets a job or not is you can offset a bunch of money that you paid that dude with a contract. So there are financial implications that would benefit the Titans to Mike Vrabel getting another head coaching job. The fans, I don't know how much they care. But looking at this situation, he didn't do any of the virtual stuff. Bill Belichick jumped right back in. Mike Vrabel did not. We didn't hear about him until the Chargers when they could start doing in-person interviews. So he basically waited until everybody had done the first round of interviews to jump back in here. I don't I don't know what the strategy or logic to that might have been, but Titans fans are going to take a massive and deserved victory lap if they fired that man for him to not get another head coaching job in 2024. Whether the circumstances dictated that nobody wanted to hire him after all the reporting around what was going on in here, or because there just wasn't necessarily a spot that made sense. I mean, what is a spot that you said made sense for Mike Vrabel when you saw, we'll say 7, because the Patriots were never an open gig. The Chargers, most ready to win, most fit, kind of what he just did or had the most success with during his time here. He's an easy person to sell to a fan base, though less and less based on stuff like Woodyard, Tier Tart, more of that being public perception. All of that stuff comes up in interviews. Absolutely, as it should. And the fact that he was late to the game, whether that was by maybe, I don't know if he was so confident enough to take. Again, I'm speculating here. But I don't know if his less than immediate approach was due to confidence or because, okay, maybe these are not the openings that we need to be pressing on right now. Because remember, we talked about this, I think, within a day or two of him being fired here, that I had heard that he was gonna slow play this thing a little bit.
Well, again, we will have been completely dead wrong if Mike Vrabel doesn't get a job.
Oh, sure. No, I'm going to eat as much crow as anybody.
Complete swing and miss.
Yeah.
Yes.
But everybody out there, I don't want to say selling Mike Vrabel, but was that not regarded? The only reason that talking point got moved off of what are they doing firing Mike Vrabel, a great coach, from everybody talking about football, was Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, and Nick Saban all happened within
it's a crazy cycle.
24 hours.
What an offseason this has been.
I'm saying.
And Harbaugh,
we're just so tired. But it's a lot of fun.
Bobby Slowick meets with the Falcons today. And to my knowledge, Bill Belichick, has he met with any franchise apart from Atlanta?
I don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head. I want to say no, but I don't know that that's 100% correct. He has had a ton of meetings with the Falcons.
Adam Schefter said on Get Up this morning that Belichick, he does not think is the favorite for the Falcons job.
Belichick, so according to Pro Football Talk this morning, Belichick, who will hire Belichick if anyone, is the headline. Other teams are considering whether to pursue him. At least one has a head coaching vacancy based on how things are playing out right now. In Atlanta, he'd ostensibly report to CEO Rich McKay. Mike Florio poses the notion that Bill Belichick might not be interested in doing that. So, some also believe, as previously noted, that Bill Belichick has little interest in coaching a team in a major media market. How about that? As one source explained, again, this is Mike Florio, explained it over the weekend, that comes from a desire to avoid the dynamic of reporters aggressively trying to develop #sources at any and all levels of the organization. The fewer the number of reporters covering a team, the less Belichick has to worry about reporters cozying up to people he otherwise needs to trust to zip it. Is this man paranoid? What does that read as? I mean, maybe that's a smart strategy. I don't know. That's a fascinating line. All right, coming up next, we are going to talk about the philosophical shift, Callahan by the numbers. You're going to hear from Greg Cosell as well later on in the show, and a little talk about red zone success. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone.